all these technical things I just explained give birth to a really amazing Marsala, really complex Marsala. So Marsala, it's a wine that has so many layers in the nose, so many layers in the mouth. I'm sorry, but that I mean, it's always difficult to speak about wine without having a glass
I know
in the hand
you're
of the
making
listener. But
you're
if you
making me
could,
want to taste this immediately.
if you could just like smell a glass of Old John, you will feel first of all hints of chestnut, honey, black pepper, so a really intense and fragrant bouquet.
Fascinating people with stories to share, fabulous wines and the best local foods to accompany them, and beautiful places to discover and visit. All of this and more on Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on the Italian Wine Podcast. Join me for a new episode every Tuesday. Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Today I'm delighted to continue a special sub-series that highlights the special award winners of the prestigious 5-Star Wines competition that took place in April, just prior to Vinitaly 2025. Today we travel to western Sicily, to the famous wine town of Marsala, to meet my guest, Anna Ruini, who looks after public relations at the historic Cantine Pellegrino Winery, which won the 5-Star Wines Best Fortified Wine Award, Old John 1998 Marsala DOC Ambra Superiore Riserva, which received 92 points from the judging teams. Many congratulations, Anna, to you and to the team. This is a great achievement. How are you today?
Hi, Mark. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm delighted to be here with you to speak about Sicily wine and Carlo Pellegrino.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to our conversation. Anna, our listeners are located all around the world, and I'd like them to get a feel for the town of Marsala, a town I really love. I come often, but also the vineyard area where the vineyards that grow the grapes to produce this very special historic wine. What is the landscape like? Can you just describe a little bit about Marsala and about the wine country?
Yes, first of all, Marsala is located on the west part of Sicily, and we are in one area that has the highest density of vineyards planted in Europe. That's because of the amazing climate condition and soil composition that we have. So we are really close to the sea. We have the natural breeze that blow in the vineyards. We have an amazing landscape just in front of our winery. There are the sole pant of Marsala that it's an amazing spot for looking the sunset. And it's an area rich of beautiful natural landscape as well history. Marsala is one of the most known, or maybe wine product, in terms of brand, historically all over the world. And the city of Marsala is a tiny city with lots of little gem around in terms of archaeology and natural beauty, like Egadi Island. So I'm lucky to be in this magic place.
Yeah, it is a magic place, Anna. As I say, I come to Western Sicily every couple of years, and you're describing that view looking across to the Egadi Islands. Absolutely stunning. And of course, those salt pans that have been in production for maybe 2,000 years, going back to the time of the Phoenicians. So it's a really historic wineland. And then I didn't know that this was the most densely planted area in Europe for vines. That's incredible.
Yeah, actually, this is strictly linked to the history of Marsala because in the 19th century, the Marsala was one of the most exported Italian wine all over the world. So the landscape changed in this area because of Marsala. Before they were mainly cultivation of vegetables, some sheep breeder, of course, vineyards, but not that high density planted. Then Marsala changed the landscape because it started to be cultivated, the vineyards, in all the Trapani area in order to supply the grape for the Marsala production. And this one was the past. Now all this land give birth to white wine, red wine, and somehow this is also the evolution that Carlo Pellegrino did. So we are a winery that our history started in the 1880, so 140 years ago, by Carlo Pellegrino. Nowadays, the company is still run by the family, so it's a family business. We still produce Marsala, but we moved also on the production on white and red wine from native grape variety like Grillo, Nero d'Avola, Zibibbo, Catarratto. So it's an area that is really vocated for the wine production, starting from red and white wine till the Marsala.
That's a really good overview. And these vines, these dense vines that were used to produce Marsala, often low-trained, bush-trained. But as you say, the vineyard in recent decades and years has been transformed, and now there's such a good range of table wines being produced from the same native grape varieties in many cases used to produce Marsala. Now, Marsala is one of Italy's most historic wines, this fortified wine. And the British played a big part in the creation of Marsala. Can you tell us something of the story of Marsala? Before the British came, there was the Perpetuum wine. Is that right?
Yeah, actually, we call nowadays Perpetuum for the local people who are just like the wine that they used to drink. So the history of Marsala somehow is linked to the terroir where we are now, of course. So like an area that it's close by the sea, that has really high thermic excursion. So the local farmer used to produce a small amount of grape variety, local grape variety, especially white grape variety. And they used to every year harvest the wine and put the fresh juice in a small barrel where there were already some wine. So you correctly call it perpetuum because you didn't have like a real vintage and bottling, but every year this wine was refreshed with a new one, and it was a wine that was refining in contact with oxygen, so an oxidated wine. Then the history of Marsala changed when John Woodhouse arrived in Sicily in the 18th century, the end of the 18th century. He was a trader from Liverpool. The legend, because we don't really know if he came here by chance or on purpose, but the legend said that his boat was hit by a storm just outside the Marsala harbor. He took refugees in Marsala harbor and he entered in an osteria. He tasted some local wine, and this style of the wine reminds him something that he already tasted, like Porto, Sherry, Madeira, so oxidated style wine. You have to think that all of the wine I've just mentioned are all produced in the Sun Belt area. That is a specific latitude where you have a really high amount of sunlight every years. So it's an area where this typology of wine, so oxidated wine, are produced in the best way. So Woodhouse tasted this wine and it took the idea, he understood the opportunity of importing this wine in UK. You have to think that in that period, Britain was in war with Portugal and Spain, so it couldn't import anymore the Porto, Madeira, Sherry, so the wine that the English people were used to drink. And it started to trade the Marsala in UK, but before doing that, he had to stabilize the wine because to trade the wine from Marsala till Liverpool, it took also 3 months. So he added some alcohol. And in that moment, started the Marsala as we know. So the fortification was done first by Woodhouse in order to allow a local wine to be shipped in UK.
Okay, that's a really good overview of that historic story of Marsala. And I'm wondering, Sicily at that time was, of course, under the Spanish,
They were
based at
Bourbons.
Naples. The Bourbons, yes. And I'm wondering if that style of wine, the Perpetuum style, maybe came from the Spanish influence, like the Solera system.
No, actually, the Solaris was introduced after. So it was
Okay.
just like a local wine.
Okay.
The knowledge of the farmer at the period of the things that worked for the specific area were higher maybe than now. So they just like produced the wine that fit the environment, I would say.
Sure. And I guess as well, Anna, because it's a hot area and it's a flat area that doesn't have so many underground cellars, and this oxidated style lended itself to the wine. And by not filling the barrels completely, the wine developed its own unique character.
Yeah, actually, it's funny because inside our cellar, in the historical cellar, we have more than 1,000 barrels to refine the Marsala. So, depending on how far is the barrels from the door where actually the breeze from the sea comes, you have different tastes. So, the influence of the environmental for the Marsala production is fundamental.
Wow, that's really, really interesting. And of course, the cellars in Marsala, these are the baglios, the bagli. Explain what a baglio is, because they're quite unique, almost like a cathedral of wine with these vast barrels and wonderful aromas that are emanating from these big wooden barrels.
Yes, so the Baglio is the typical building, I would say, production building that was created, I would say, here in Marsala when the Marsala history started. So it has like a kind of like shape of like a U. So in the middle you have a big court, and then all around you have the cellar that have developed along this big court. And the Marsala winery wasn't like a winery like we know nowadays. So they were like a kind of like cathedral because you need really big barrels, big volume in order to refine the wine. So really high ceiling. It really looks like a cathedral. It's amazing. And nowadays we still keep the architecture. So visitor that comes in our cellar, they just like see the winery has it was almost 180 years ago. Of course, nowadays it's a more modern in terms of technology. So we have some stainless steel, etc. But the refining part of the Marsala is still the same. And inside our winery, we also kept some little gem to let understand the visitor how was the Marsala production, because you have to think that inside the winery there were also the barrel production, the one that was used to ship the Marsala from the winery everywhere in the world. And the visitor comes in our winery, see how it was the Marsala production. Also, the transportation of this small barrel was done by train. So from the Baglio, it was took with a little char and horse. It was brought to the train rail path, and then these barrels traveled till Palermo, where they were shipped on the boat and traded all over the world. So the conformation of the city is strictly linked to the Marsala production.
Okay, that's actually really giving a picture of what vast and important trade in Marsala wine there was, with this wonderful, unique wine being shipped all over the world. And we're going back a long time when that trade began, back to the story of when Cantine Pellegrino began, really, because that was something of a heyday for Marsala, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the story of Carlo Pellegrino started with the Marsala, and we were one of the first Italian family to enter in the business of Marsala, because for almost 100 years, all the Marsala production was run by English family who came here. So we are proud to have this heritage and to keep still the Marsala production as one of our gem in the line of the wine that we offer.
Okay. Now, Marsala is not one wine. There are many different styles of wine, and it's a complicated wine, Anna. So I just wonder if you could give a brief overview, a sort of mini masterclass into the world of Marsala. It is complicated, but we have the Oro, the Ambro, the Rubino, and the different aging and the different sweetness levels. Can you give us a brief idea so that our listeners who are located all over the world, when they see a bottle of Marsala, can understand a bit more what to look for?
Of course. Okay, so Marsala, first of all, it's a wine that can be produced with the native grape variety like Inzolia, Catarratto, Grillo, Grecanico, so are all white grape variety. And as we said, it's a fortified wine. So the liquid that we drink in the bottle is a combination of the grape, the fortification, so the kind of the liquid that is added to fortify the wine, so increase the alcohol degree, and the time of aging. Okay, so these three different components give birth to the different typology of Marsala. So the Marsala Vergine is a Marsala that is fortified just using alcohol. So whenever you have a wine that is produced, so you get like a wine from the vintage that reach around 13 degrees, okay, 13 half, then you add alcohol in order to fortify the wine and increase the alcohol percentage. So Marsala for disciplinary has to has at least 18 degrees of alcohol. Whenever you add just alcohol, so it can be aquavite or brandy, you get the Marsala Vergine. And Marsala Vergine is the driest version of Marsala and is the one that have to be more aged. So Marsala Vergine has to have at least 6 years of aging. Okay. Then you have the Vergine Riserva, and then in this case, the wine have to be aged at least 10 years. After the Marsala Vergine, there is another category that is called Marsala Superiore. So Marsala Superiore is a Marsala that is fortifying using alcohol and other two ingredients. Or the Mistella, that is the fresh must, okay, or the cooked must, mosto cotto. So according to the style of fortification of superiore, you can have, if you use the Mistella, superiore oro, because the color is gold. If you use mosto cotto, cooked must, the color is amber, Marsala ambra. This is the color. Then in the category of superior, according to the sugar residual, you can find Marsala Superiore dry. That means that has less than 50 grams per liter of sugar content. Marsala Superior semi-dry, that has in between more than 50 and less than 100 grams per liter. Or Marsala Superior sweet, Marsala Superiore dolce, that has more than 100 grams per liter of sugar residual. And the Marsala Superior, to be called superior, has to be aged at least 3 years. Okay? Also for Marsala Superior, you can have the Marsala Superior Riserva, and in this case, the aging has to be at least 5 years. Then you have the third version of Marsala, that is the youngest version, that is called Marsala Fine. And in this case, it is a sweet Marsala that is aged just 1 year. So it's the, let's say, youngest and less complex version, the more important and the one that we always say that have the most amazing potential in terms of longevity and consumption are the Marsala Vergine, Marsala Superiore.
Okay, that is a brilliant overview of the different styles and the different aging and the different sweetness levels. But I think what I want our listeners to understand is that Marsala isn't just a wine that you see on the shelves. There are many types of Marsalas of varying quality levels as well. And it is one of Italy's great wines, a great fortified wine, certainly, but part of this heritage of great wines in Italy. And that indicates something of the complexity of it. Let's focus on your award-winning wine, Anna, the Old John 1998. Now, this is an Ambra Superiore Riserva, which you've just explained, but tell us a little bit more about this wine.
First of all, Old John, it's a producer just using Grillo grape variety together with Catarratto and Insolia, and Grillo is the highest in terms of percentage. You have to consider that Grillo is the grape variety that give the more complexity to the Marsala. So whenever you search for a high quality Marsala, you search for a Marsala that has Grillo as one of the highest percentage in the composition. Then, according to what I explained of the classification, so Old John is a Marsala Superiore Riserva. So superior means that it's a fortified wine with alcohol and something else. In this case, we use alcohol and small percentage of cooked must. So you have the color that is amber. It's a riserva because the wine is dating back the 1998, so it has more than, of course, 6 years of aging. You have to consider that the vintage that is recorded on the label is not the vintage of when you harvest the grape, but is the year of fortification of the wine. So this wine was fortified in the 1998, and this is the vintage that is recorded on the label. All these technical things I just explained give birth to a really amazing Marsala, really complex Marsala. So Marsala, it's a wine that has so many layers in the nose, so many layers in the mouth. I'm sorry, but that I mean, it's always difficult to speak about wine without having a glass
I know
in the hand
you're
of the
making
listener. But
you're
if you
making me
could,
want to taste this immediately.
if you could just like smell a glass of Old John, you will feel first of all hints of chestnut, honey, black pepper, so a really intense and fragrant bouquet that also combine some freshness like apricot. Then in the mouth, you will feel a really large, dense, and persistent wine. Another great component of Marsala is always the great balance you find in your mouth between the alcohol, that is important because you have 18 degrees of alcohol. In this case, the sugar residual, because Old John is a semi-secco, so it has in between 60 grams per liter of sugar residual. You have this sensation of sugar, but you don't feel it. You don't really feel the sweetness because the other component that you will feel in the mouth, it's a great sapidity. And the sapidity, it's something that is strictly linked to the terroir where we are now. So every Marsala, every wine, especially the white wine that you will taste produced in the west part of Sicily, has this sapidity in the mouth that just like make you feel like to just like drink a wine in front of the sea.
Okay, that is a beautiful tasting note. And as you say, it would be far better if everybody listening to this podcast had a glass of Old John with them while you were describing that. But I almost feel as if I did. You described that so well. And what I note mostly, Anna, is that, we have this great complexity, this nuttiness, the pepper, but also you mentioned the freshness, this vibrant acidity that great Marsala has, along with this sapidity, this salinity that comes almost, you can feel those fresh sea breezes coming off of the sea, looking out to the Egadi Islands. So I think that really shows how Marsala is very linked to terroir, this unique terroir of Western Sicily, which is the only place where it can be made. Anna, can Marsala be a gastronomic wine? We don't think of fortified wines as wines that we enjoy with food, but I'm imagining some of the beautiful sweet pastry traditions that come from Sicily. Are there any other foods, and can you describe some foods that you might want to have with this beautiful Ambra Superiore Riserva?
Of course, and I would say that actually Marsala it's a super gastronomic wine. So as I told, we just spoke about the different typology of Marsala. So you start from something dry like a Vergine, you reach the sweet version like Marsala Superior Sweet. So it's a wine that has an amazing versatility at the table. So first of all, we have to think Marsala has a wine that can be drink during a meal, and to do that, you have to serve in proper glass. So, like wine glass, like the one that you use for white or red wine, and proper temperature service. So, not room temperature, but chilled, like in between 12 and 14 degrees. This is really important in order to make the Marsala more drinkable, more easy to drink also by the glass itself. For the Old John, of course, you can easily pair with amazing cheese like blue cheese or really aged cheese. Of course, you have the classic pairing with like sweet. We are in Sicily, so anything prepared with ricotta is amazing. So cannoli or cassata, but I love to pair the Marsala Superior Ambra Semisecco also with some umami pasta, like pasta with bottarga and some lemon zest. So anything that has an umami taste pairs really well with Marsala. In this case, for the Marsala Superior Old John Semisecco, since you have also this sugar residual, you have to have also something pretty salt to balance. But as I told you, like a bottarga, it's an amazing combination for this wine. Bottarga actually is a red tuna roll that is typical from this part of Sicily.
That's a really, really wonderful description of foods as well, and reminding that as you gave us this overview of Marsala, that there is such versatility in styles, and that yes, it can partner a meal throughout the courses. Anna, what would you have perhaps with the wonderful Gambero Rosso di Mazzara del Vallo, the red prawns that are such a specialty of Western Sicily and that are a specialty that goes all around Italy, but I'm sure tastes best when you're in Western Sicily?
Yeah, okay. So if we stick on Marsala, Marsala Vergine is a great pairing with the Gambero Rosso because the Vergine, as I told you, is the driest version you can have. It's more, let's say, clean in the mouth, so more direct, and clean up your mouth after the fat meat of the gambero that is a crustaceous, so it has this really luscious tasting, no? But of course, if we move also to other wine that, for example, we produce using a native grape variety, I would say with a Grillo, so like a Senaria, that is one of our flagship white wine. So something that is strictly linked to the terroir because Grillo is one of the most representative variety of the west part of Sicily, and still have the freshness, the minerality that can goes really well with the red prawn Gambero Rosso.
Okay, that's a really, really good suggestion as well. Grillo with the Gambero Rosso, this wonderful red prawn. And I think when you mention that Gambero Rosso, when I've eaten them, especially crudo, raw, you have a really lingering taste of the sea in your mouth. It's incredible, the concentration of flavor. And I can see why that would pair so well with a Vergine. But I'm really intrigued by having the Old John with the pasta with bottarga. That's a suggestion I would not have thought of.
So next time you will come to Sicily, we can drink and eat together pasta with bottarga and the Marsala Old John.
Well, I would love that. What about, Anna, one more iconic dish of Western Sicily, of course, is the couscous di pesce. Tell us about this dish and about wines to pair, whether Marsala or your other range of table wines.
Yes, okay. Couscous, whenever you say this word, people maybe think mostly to North Africa, no, because it's a typical dishes that is prepared there. But in the west part of Sicily, so Marsala, Trapani, San Vito Lo Capo, it's a typical dishes that make you understand also the history of this part of Sicily, because there was a big Arabic influence in this part of Sicily, and you can see from some architectural buildings and also from the food. So couscous is one of that. The typical thing is that we prepare couscous with fish. Of course, we are just like next to the sea, so fish is one of the main ingredient of the traditional recipes of Marsala and the west part of Sicily. And the fish couscous is a really rich, intense, and I would say also tasty. Somehow can be a little bit hearty. You have the fish, you have lots of garlic, you have, of course, the tomato sauce. So it's a really complex and intense dishes. And here also they serve the fish couscous paired with a sauce that is made with mixing garlic and almond. So garlic is something that you really have in the fish couscous. So sometimes I like to have the couscous with Marsala Superior Dry, because it's, as I told you, really complex dishes, really tasty, really umami, and pairs well also with Marsala. But I love also again to eat the couscous with some white wine that are produced in west part of Sicily. So I mentioned the Grillo. So Grillo as Senaria is and the Salinaro. It's another white wine that we produce. Are really versatile and really pair well with the fish couscous. But I would say also another iconic wine that we produce is Isesi, that is a Pantelleria d'Oca Bianco. So we move in another small island in front of the area where we have that is Pantelleria, where we also have a winery and vineyard there. So we have lots of options, I would say.
Wonderful. Wonderful description of dish as well. Now, Anna, you've made our listeners want to visit Marsala and the Carlo Pellegrino Winery. Can they visit and see this historic Baglio and taste the wines?
Of course, we open our cellar all year round to welcome visitors in our historical cellar. So we are based in Marsala, just in front of the Egadi Island. So the entrance is facing this beautiful landscape. And we have, as you mentioned, the Baglio that can be visited. And inside Baglio, you will see, beside the barrels and everything that is the construction for refined Marsala, we also have a small museum in our Baglio. So there is a small part that is dedicated to the Sicilian char that are well preserved and kept and restored, and a visitor along the path can see this beautiful Sicilian char. But we also have even something that is older, like some Phoenician rest. When we restore one part of the building, we found some Phoenician archaeology site just like under the ground. So visitor can have also this extra content beside, of course, the wine tasting. So it's something that worth a visit, I would say.
Okay, well, that's really, really good to know. And actually, that's interesting to remind of this long history of this area with the Phoenicians on the island of Mozia, just across from you. And of course, the great naval battles, the Punic Wars that took place in the waters just off of the coast of Marsala. Anna, it's been a fascinating talk with you this morning. You've really taken us to Western Sicily, to Marsala, and explained a complicated and historic wine that I really love. And I hope our listeners will seek out and find Marsala in all its different styles and quality levels, because it is one of the great wines of Italy. Congratulations again for the Best Fortified Wines Award at 5-Star Wines. And I hope I can visit you on my next visit to Marsala. Grazie. And
Grazie, Mark, and thank you for inviting me to this amazing podcast.
Grazie,
And I
Anna.
wait for you soon here in Marsala.
Okay, thank you and have a great day.
Bye.
Bye. We hope today's episode of Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on the Italian Wine Podcast has transported you to somewhere special. Please remember to like, share and subscribe wherever you get your pods. Likewise, you can visit us at italianwinepodcast.com. Until next time, chin chin.